If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free, and you guessed it, it's free. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. It's everything you need to make a podcast in just one place. So download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Pieces of a Nation.
Hello.
Hi there.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you? Great to meet you.
Good to meet you. Good to meet you. How are you? How's everything?
Everything's good. Cool background.
Hey, thank you. Likewise. I love the cherry blossoms.
Thank you. They make me happy.
Yeah, they do. They do. They're huge in Japan. There's a long story about that, but let me introduce you, and we'll get that out of the way, and we'll jump into it. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Awesome. Well, welcome back, Pieces of a Nation listeners. This is the podcast that makes you feel stuff. My name is Richard Chu. Please follow us on Instagram, Pieces of a Nation. And while you're back, please subscribe, rate, and review our show. Also, if you'd like to support us, please support us on Patreon. It would really help us out. It's only $5 a month. Just go to www.patreon.com/Pieces of a Nation. Today, I'd like to introduce to you a pretty, I want to call her a powerful woman, if that's a good adjective, because the things I'm going to list off right now are extremely, in my eyes, very empowering and powerful, to say the least. She's a founder of the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute. She's a holistic psychologist. She's an author of the #1 best-selling book, The Unshakable Woman: 4 Steps to Rebuilding Your Body, Mind, and Life After a Life Crisis, and her newest book coming out, or I think it's already out. It's called Trust Again, Overcoming Betrayal and Regaining Health, Confidence, and Happiness. Debbie Silber, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to our conversation.
Absolutely. Likewise. First off, how is everything with your family, friends, the area that you're in? How's everything going?
Everything is just great. I have 4 kids, and today they are all home. And it doesn't usually work out like that because 3 of them are in California and 1 of them is in New York. So when everybody's together, it's just magical.
4 kids, huh? That's a party right there.
Yeah, there you go.
I have a son. He just turned 3 in February, so we're just starting out our family. So I can't imagine having a 6 people family. I guess that's what you call it, right?
Yeah, and the best thing ever is when you see, if you have more than one, and you see them hanging out on their own, having fun, having nothing in the world to do with you. That's just
yeah, I know. It's getting to he's 3, and he's in that stage where every single thing is, Daddy, pick me up, or do this for me. And, and I love doing it. And, but there are times where you just get super tired and you kind of just have to go, kid, okay, I'm going to do this for you, but I got to let you know that I'm extremely tired.
Of course, human.
Yeah. Right. I mean, we're their parents. They think we're superheroes. So, yeah, that's at least that's the impression that I'm getting. So, So Debbie, tell us about. I'm actually super fascinated. I've been doing self-improvement work for the past 25 years, right? And I'm always fascinated and interested when people write books. So your best-selling book is called The Unshakable Woman, right? Mm-hmm. And I love the essence of it because it's really rebuilding your whole essence as a human being. People who have gone through certain things in their life, right? So I kind of want to run through your background a little bit, how you came about writing these books, and how you became the person that you are today, to help all, to help the people out there?
Sure. So this is my 30th year in business, and I've been in health mindset, personal development forever. And as I would grow and change, so would the business. And the Unshakable Woman was really the result of a few life crises that I managed to get through, death of a loved one, disease. And then I had betrayal. And that was first from my family and then from my husband. It was awful. Anybody who's been through it, it's horrible. Life as you've known it no longer exists. So here I was with 4 kids and 6 dogs and a thriving business. And I was like, you know what? I'm going back for a PhD. That's it.
Wow.
So yeah. And it was crazy. I didn't know how I was going to pay for it, how I was going to do it, but it was in transpersonal psychology, the psychology of transformation and human potential. I was obsessed with that because I was really doing it and I didn't quite understand what was happening. But I did a study and I studied betrayal. What holds us back? What helps us heal? And what happens to us physically, mentally, and emotionally when the people closest to us lie, cheat, and deceive? That study led to 3 groundbreaking discoveries, which changed everything. But my latest book, Trust Again, Overcoming Betrayal, Regaining Health, Confidence, and Happiness, is essentially about 500 plus hours of research. It was my dissertation. But who the heck reads that besides your dissertation committee? And I was like, I put in way too much work there. So I made it very reader friendly. And it's, I'm really excited to just share it with the world.
Sure. Wow. So let me get this straight. So single mom.
I was. Well, I can finish the story by telling you that one of the things the study proved was how to know if it's safe and in your best interest to heal and rebuild, or how to know if it's safe and in your best interest to heal and move on. So with my family, it just simply wasn't an option. So with that, healed myself, moved along. With my husband, as 2 totally different people, not long ago, we married each other again.
Got it. Okay. Got it. Wow. Because I was going to say single mom, 6 dogs and 4 kids.
Yeah.
That's intense. That is so intense. I mean,
It was ridiculous. Yes.
Yeah, I bet. I mean, but so much good human revolution though, right? I mean, the essence of your journey is so, I mean, you must have dug up so many gems at the same time, dug up so many, lost souls, if you will, right? Like there's so much junk. I mean, you and I know, I totally understand. Like when things, you start to take on this journey, you start to climb Mount Olympus, things are going to come up, right?
Yeah. And I looked at this whole betrayal experience. I said, I've been through death of a loved one. I've been through disease, but if I can make it through this and I can heal from betrayal, I'm taking everybody with me. And that's what the PBT Institute, the Post-Betrayal Transformation Institute, is for. It's really the result of what these 3 discoveries led to.
Okay. So what are the 3 discoveries?
Yeah. So the first one was, having been through other life crises, I was like, you know what? Betrayal just feels so different for me, but I didn't want to assume. So I asked my study participants and I was like, if you've been through other challenges, other traumas besides betrayal, does it feel different for you? Hands down, unanimously, they said, oh my gosh, it's so different. It's so different because it feels so intentional. So we take it so personally. So the whole self has to be rebuilt. Think about it. Rejection, abandonment, belonging, confidence, worthiness, trust. Those are demolished and they all have to be rebuilt. So that type of healing needed its own name, which is now called post-betrayal transformation. Like, let's say you lose someone you love, you grieve, you're sad, you mourn the loss. You don't necessarily take it personally. You don't have issues with trust, let's say, but the nature of betrayal shatters all of it because this was the person, these were the people who gave you that sense of safety and security. So when this is the person, those are the people to shatter it, it's a lot to heal from. So that was the first one, that it's a different type of healing. The second discovery was that while we can stay stuck for years, decades, a lifetime, and so many of us do, if we're going to fully heal to that place of post-betrayal transformation, we will go through 5 proven predictable stages. And what's even more exciting about that is now we know what happens physically, mentally, and emotionally. at every one of those stages, and we know what it takes to move from one stage to the next. So the good part about that is now there's a roadmap to healing. Healing is predictable. And I can go through the 5 stages if you want.
Yes, please, please. Yeah,
sure.
absolutely.
I lay them all out in trust again with experiential activities to move someone from one stage to the next. But here are the 5 stages. Briefly, here are the 5 stages. So the first was like a setup stage. If you imagine 4 legs of a table, the 4 legs being physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. What I saw with everybody was a real heavy lean on the physical and the mental and kind of neglecting the emotional and the spiritual. So what does that look like? Looks like we're really good at thinking and doing and not really prioritizing the feeling and being. That's where our intuition lies, and we turn that down. So if a table only had 2 legs, easy for that table to topple over, that's us. And stage 2, which leads to stage 2, by far the scariest stage. This is the shock, D-Day, Discovery Day. And this is the breakdown of the body, the mind, the worldview. You've ignited the stress response. So now you're headed for every single stress-related symptom, illness, condition, disease. Your mind is in a complete state of chaos and overwhelm. You cannot understand or wrap your mind around what you just learned. Makes no sense. And your worldview is shattered. Your worldview is your mental model. These are the rules. This is how life works. Trust this person. Don't go there, right? And in a moment, every rule you've known is no longer. The bottom is bottomed out on you. And a new bottom hasn't been formed yet. So it's terrifying. But think about it. If the bottom were to bottom out on you, what would you do? You would grab hold of anything and everything you could to stay safe and stay alive. That's stage 3. Survival instincts emerge. It's the most practical of all of the stages. If you can't help me, get out of my way. How can I survive this experience? Where do I go? Who can I trust? But here's the trap. And this is where most people get stuck. The most common place to get stuck is stage 3. Because, and you have no idea, there's a stage 4 and stage 5. Because stage 3, survival, when you figure that out, you're like, okay, I can do this. I got this. Because it feels so much better than the shock and trauma of where you just came from, you think it's good. Right? So you start planting some roots here and a few things start happening. The first thing is you start getting all these small self benefits. You get to be right. You get your story. You get someone to blame. You get a target for your anger. You get sympathy from everybody you tell your story to. You don't have to do the hard work of learning to trust again. Should I trust you? Should I trust you? Forget, I'm not trusting anybody. You start planting deeper roots. You're not meant to stay here long, but now you're planting some roots here. So now the mind starts doing things like, well, maybe you're not all that. Maybe you deserved it. Deeper roots. And then you know this because like energy attracts like energy. Now you're calling circumstances and people and situations towards you to confirm this is where you belong. It gets worse, but I'll get you out of here. Because it feels so bad, but you have no idea there's anything better. Transformation doesn't even start until stage 4 and stage 5. Here's where you start resigning yourself to thinking, well, this is as good as it gets. I better get used to it. So here's where you start using food, drugs, alcohol, work, TV, keeping busy to numb, avoid, distract yourself because you don't feel good, but you don't know there's anything else. So you do this for a day, a week, a month now to habit, a year, 5, 10, 20 years, right? And I can see someone 20 years out and say, that emotional eating you're doing or that drinking you're doing, do you think that has anything to do with your betrayal? They say, oh my gosh, that happened 20 years ago. Doesn't matter. You see, they were stuck in that stage 3. Most common place to get stuck. Anyway, if we're willing to let go of the small self benefits and all that other stuff, we have to do a couple of things. We can move to stage 4. Stage 4 is finding and adjusting to a new normal. Here's where you acknowledge, I can't undo my betrayal, but I can control what I do with it. And I always use the example of, if you've ever moved to a new house, office, condo, apartment, you don't have all your stuff there. It's not quite cozy yet, but it's going to be okay. And when you're in this place, you're turning down the stress response. You're not healing just yet, but you've stopped causing the massive damage you were causing in stage 2 and stage 3. But this is what's so interesting too. If you were to move, you don't necessarily take everything with you. And what I saw was, if your friends weren't there for you, right here is where you've outgrown them. So people say to me all the time, I've had these friends 10, 20, 30 years. What the heck? Is it me? Yes, it is. You're undergoing this transformation and you're losing what you used to have in common. Anyway, when you've made stage 4, okay, you've accepted, you're getting used to, the mind starts changing a little bit. You can move into stage 5. This is the most beautiful stage. Healing, rebirth, and a new worldview. The body starts to heal. Self-love, self-care, eating well, exercise. You didn't have the bandwidth for that earlier. You were in survival. Now you do. Your mind, you're making new rules, new boundaries based on everything you see so clearly. And you have a new worldview based on your entire experience. And the 4 legs of the table, remember in the beginning, it was just all about the physical and the mental. By this point, we're solidly grounded because we're focused on the emotional and the spiritual too. Those are the 5 stages.
Wow. That was wow. That was deep. I love the table metaphor. Number 1, because that's the foundation of, in a way, in your mind, body, and soul, right? The breakdown process that you were talking about, it's sort of like a detox process, right? You're letting things out. You have to express yourself, find ways to express yourself. Then you get into survival mode, which is, you feel like you're in the clear, but you're not really there yet because you haven't fully come out the door. You're literally right before the door, but you think because you see the light, that means you've transformed, but you haven't been. You're stuck in that sort of moment, right? It's almost trying to, gasp for air if you're being pushed underwater in a way, right? The adjusting to the new normal is awesome. It's the transformational aspect of you're starting to understand, oh, well, the people in my life are starting to fall away, but I've got to learn make new friends to really understand the resonation of energies, to understand where I'm at, and what I was before wasn't necessarily the person that I am today. So that means because I'm here creating this new energy, I'm learning to attract these new people around my life, right? And hence, the last piece, which is healing, rebirth, which is awesome. And you have a new, essentially, it's great because you've attracted this new energy. You're sitting in this. Now you get to see sort of a new paradise, if you will, right? Wow, that's great. I love how you broke down the 5 stages of journey. You have one more in the 3 discoveries, which I'm really fascinated in, and I'm gonna see if I can tie all this in together after you're done.
Yeah. So the third was that there's actually this collection of symptoms so common to betrayal. It's known as post-betrayal syndrome. And we've had over 19,000 people at this point take the post-betrayal syndrome quiz on our site to see to what extent they're still struggling. And here's what I found so amazing with all the research we're getting from those 19,000 people. We've all heard time heals all wounds. I have the proof that's not true, because there's a question that says, is there anything else you'd like to share? And people write things like, my betrayal happened 40 years ago and I can still feel the hate. My betrayal happened 35 years ago. I'm unwilling to trust again. My betrayal happened 10 years ago. Feels like it happened yesterday. So we know when it comes to betrayal, you can count on time to heal it, but I can spot a betrayal from a mile away. It does not heal with time. It heals when you face it, feel it, heal it.
It's interesting. There's so many old sayings that I feel like needs a revamp, right? There's the old saying, practice makes perfect. No, it doesn't. Practice makes things easier, but it doesn't make it perfect, because nothing in the world is perfect, right? I'm glad there's this new sort of wave, or new waves happening, where things are starting to recalibrate and shifting in a way so that people can understand it in the modern day, right? It's not like we talk, if you were to study Shakespeare, it's not like we talk like Shakespearean, the Shakespearean age, right? We talk like normal people in this day of age, right? This is great. So those are the 3 stages. So
those are the 3 discoveries. Yeah. And I'm happy to go through even how do you know if you haven't healed? because this is something, someone may say, well, no, I definitely did. But it shows up in every single area of life: health, work, relationships. Like, for example, in relationships, I see it in one of two ways. I'll see it the first way: when there's a repeat betrayal, that's an unhealed betrayal, because we keep getting opportunities in the form of people to give us this profound lesson we are ready to learn, that maybe we are lovable, worthy, and deserving. You need better boundaries in place, whatever it is. Until and unless you get that, you will keep repeating these betrayals, not because these people are so good, because they're so familiar, until you get that lesson. The other way we see it, and I'm sure you've seen this all the time, where people put the big wall up. They're like, nope, been there, done that, not letting that happen again. And we think it's coming from a place of strength. It's not. It's coming from fear. We're so afraid to open up and be vulnerable. And I get it. We haven't healed, and we haven't learned to trust again. So there's a 4-step trust rebuilding process we need to implement before we even consider trusting again.
Right. Right. So, okay. So kind of like retracking back a little bit, can you describe what betrayal really is, so we can get a better understanding of that?
Sure. Well, I define it as the breaking of a spoken or unspoken rule. Every relationship has them. Think of it. We had a rule. I was going to show up. We were going to have a conversation. If I didn't, right, I would have betrayed you. Now, wouldn't have messed you up too badly. But the way it works is the more we depend and the more we trust someone, the bigger the betrayal. So, for example, a child who's completely dependent on their parent, and that parent does something awful, that's going to have a different impact than, let's say, your best friend sharing your secret. Right? It's still a betrayal, but it's not going to, you don't have the same amount of cleanup left in the wake of something like that.
Got it. So, okay. So let's say one hypothetically, goes through, like you were bringing up, child and parent, right? Mm-hmm. So let's say there's a moment in the formative years, right? Let's say around, I don't know, I guess the most impressionable years could be around like 5 to 8, right? Mm-hmm. So around 5 to 8, something happens. Mm-hmm. Parent does something to child, totally traumatizes his kid, right? Mm-hmm. But you know the father loves you, or the mom loves you, right? But you're still stuck with that moment in your life, and you've been living years unknowingly. Not realizing this moment is the the cornerstone of everything that's happening in your life, right? Yes. So how do you deal with something like that, and how do you realize and notice it?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And you're right. It can be something traumatizing, but here's the thing. It doesn't even have to be something traumatizing. It could be it's whatever meaning we gave something. Like, for example, you said to dad. So let's just say it was your school play and you look out in the audience and dad isn't there. Now, you don't know he was stuck in traffic and he was just so desperately wanting to be there, but couldn't get it. You could get there on time. You could have made that to mean at that very moment, I don't matter. And once that idea is there, and then you fuel it with some emotion, you keep repeating it, then your mind's like, oh, I didn't realize you want me to repeat this all day. Don't worry, go about your business. I'll just put this in your subconscious and have it as like a subconscious program running all day long. Now, you have between 60 and 80,000 thoughts a day. So if there's some version of I don't matter repeating 10, 20, 30,000 times a day, it's going to show up in every area. And then what the mind does is it looks for confirming evidence to support the belief. So you get that confirming evidence and you're like, yeah, I don't matter. And you keep confirming it and on and on and on it goes. And until and unless you take a look at that, it's just going to keep going. And we live an entire life that way. So it's not what we outwardly say and think, it's what's beneath. That's what matters. It's like an iceberg. 10% above the surface, what's wrecking the ship is not what's above. It's the 90% below. That's the stuff we have to figure out. And then we have to actually we have to break those neural networks, those neural connections, rewire something so much better that can serve us and can help us.
Right. I mean, so how does one person, like, let's say there's a listener out there that has gone through trauma at such a young age. Like,
Yeah.
how do they actually start to heal themselves? Right. How do they get out of the pattern of those things that have caused so much animosity in their lives, and so much other negativity in their lives? What's that first step that you would like suggest that one person to start doing?
Yeah, nothing happens without awareness. So the first thing has to be they have to become aware of how they are showing up. Every single thing that you have or where you are in life is the result of the beliefs you have. Your beliefs brought you right here to right now, this very moment. So if you want something different, it's going to take a very new set of beliefs. So what we need to do is take a look at what are your beliefs in every single area of life. Where did they form? Where'd you get them? Maybe you needed them as a kid, but if they don't serve you now, you have to know what's driving the behaviors so that you can change them. So often I see it where someone changes the behavior and in order to have a different result. Makes sense, right? But I go deeper because here's the thing. What's the reason why that behavior is happening in the first place? It's because of the belief behind it. So if you get to the belief, it will naturally change the behavior. It will naturally change the result.
Yeah, the belief is a really interesting component to your psyche, right? Because it all stems down from imagination. Because this is why kids are so amazing in the moment, because they're able to believe every single moment that they can, right? And so, but when something traumatizing happens, right, that imagination can go haywire, right? And that's when you get stuck in that, sort of imaginary belief system that you're not worthy enough. So, and that echoes constantly, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing. A belief system is no more than the repetition of an idea from someone you trust. That's it. Someone you trust, a parent, a teacher, someone in a religious capacity, whatever. They said something to you enough times that made it your belief. It doesn't make it good or bad, doesn't make it right or wrong, doesn't make it true, but it makes it yours. And then we take it over. And here's the thing. There's a really big difference between a belief and a fact. And so often we go through life thinking our beliefs are facts, and they're not. A belief can be totally and completely dismantled, right? A fact cannot. Gravity, throw something up, it's coming down. But with a belief, if it can be dismantled, we can't treat it as a fact, because when you do, you stay stuck.
Mm-hmm. Right. So because that belief is on such an emotional level, it will eventually cause physical harm in any way, shape, or form, right? So let's talk about the physical symptoms of betrayal, like the emotional and mental symptoms. Can we go through that?
Sure. So I actually, every once in a while, I pull the stats from the quiz just to see what's happening with everybody. And so now imagine, this is out of 19,000 people. Ready? 78% constantly revisit their experience. This is as it relates to betrayal. 81% feel a loss of personal power. 80% are hypervigilant. Now that's just exhausting right there. 94% deal with painful triggers. These are the top physical symptoms. 71% have low energy. 68% have sleep issues, and 63% extreme fatigue. So you could sleep a whole night, wake up, you're exhausted. 47% have weight changes. So in the beginning, maybe you can't hold food down. Later on, you use food for comfort. 45% have digestive issues. This could be anything: Crohn's, IBS, constipation, diarrhea, you name it. Some of the most common mental symptoms: 78% are overwhelmed, 70% walking around in a state of disbelief, 68% unable to focus, 64% are in shock, 62% are unable to concentrate. So imagine you're unable to concentrate, you have a gut issue, and you're exhausted. That's not even, you're trying to raise your kids or whatever. That's not even the emotional ones. 88% extreme sadness, 83% anger. You just take anger and sadness and you bounce back and forth between those two. That's debilitating. 82%, right? 82% feel hurt, 80% are anxious, 79% are stressed. Here's why I wrote trust again. 84% have an inability to trust. 67% are preventing themselves from forming deep relationships because they're afraid of being hurt again. 82% find it hard to move forward. 90% want to move forward, but they don't know how.
Wow. Do you think some of these issues can also cause gut issues? Because you're talking about IBS and all that, right?
Yeah.
So let's say
45% have a gut issue after betrayal.
So let's say, wow, this fascinates me because there's, people get, the talk about brain fog these days, right? There's a lot of talk about how it's all gut issues and you have to eat right. But some people eat right but it comes back and they can't figure it out. It sounds to me, what you're saying is a lot of this trauma and part of the betrayal is also affecting the gut. If it's so deep, how can we heal that within ourselves? If let's say if we don't feel like reaching out to other people, if people are a little bit more introverted, if you will, right, and they just want to learn so they can heal themselves better, how would they be able to do something like this?
Yeah, well, and that's why I wrote trust again, because here's why. At a time where we need support the most, we're the least likely to seek it because there's so much shame. There's so much embarrassment. There's so much, just fear of judgment, all of it. And I get it. I lived it. So I understand it. And that's also why we have a certification program. We certify coaches and practitioners and doctors and therapists in the 5 stages. So this way, let's say someone, a patient, a client could go to a gut expert, and that gut expert knows, a certain amount of how to treat the gut. But if they know their client or patient is coming in with a gut issue because of an unhealed betrayal, the work can be so much deeper because there's only so much you can do with food, with supplements, with meds. If you don't get to the root of it, it's never going to heal. And when you heal it at the root, though, everything heals.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, but that's the question. How do you find the root of it, right?
If the root is an unhealed betrayal, then we know exactly what it is. And here's the thing. If because of that unhealed betrayal, think about it, stemming from that unhealed betrayal, you don't sleep, you have gut issues, weight changes, you have thyroid issues, adrenal issues, anxiety, all of it, joint pain, all of it. What the heck is the point of numbing, medicating, suppressing all of those symptoms? At the root of it is the pain, is that unhealed betrayal. And here's the thing. When someone is betrayed, typically we'll see that let's say they go to therapy, that their insurance covers. And we found if that therapist isn't highly skilled in how to move someone through a betrayal, it does more harm than good. So that may be helpful if it's a qualified, someone who deeply understands what betrayal, you need to do to heal from it. But if not, and even if so, they're healing on one level. But this hits every level. So the issues are in the tissues. This hits every cell. So it all needs to be addressed. And that's why, in addition to the mental emotional piece, they need somatic body-based practices too. They need the right kind of support to lift and inspire, not to keep them stuck. So it's this combination. I mean, that's why I formed the PBT Institute, because it's based on the research, based on what the 19,000 people say they needed, and based on what I saw wasn't working. That's not it.
So, in your opinion, it's. Do you think that reframing actually helps get down to the root of the matter?
Well, reframing, what happens with betrayal is you need to make sense and then make meaning out of your experience. And that's not to say, oh, this was the best thing that ever happened, if you truly don't feel that way. But there are always lessons to be learned. It always is an opportunity to, betrayal invites you to to create a new identity. You leave behind all the parts that don't serve, and you create a version of yourself that would blow your mind. And, I use this analogy of a house. And I did 2 TEDx talks. I talk about this one in the second one. And this analogy of the house, here's the difference between resilience and transformation. Resilience is restoring, bringing back. You need that for your everyday. Transformation and trauma is a whole other thing. So let's say your house needs a new boiler. You get a boiler. That would be resilience. You're bringing it back. You're restoring. Or let's say it needs a new roof. You get a roof. That's resilience. You're restoring. Here's trauma and transformation. A tornado comes by and levels your house, right? A new boiler's not going to fix it, and a new roof's not going to fix it. But here's the thing. You have every right to stand there at the lot where your house once stood and say, this is the most tragic thing that's ever happened. And you'd be right. And if you called everybody over and said, look at this, isn't this the worst thing you've ever seen? They'd all agree. And you can mourn and grieve the loss of your house the rest of your life. However, if you choose to rebuild your house, you don't have to, but if you choose to, why would you build the same house? There's nothing there, right? Why not give it everything the old house didn't have, make it bigger, better, more beautiful? Trauma is the setup for transformation.
Wow.
Use it that way. If we use it that way.
Wow. Trauma, I got to repeat that. Trauma is I'm writing this down too. Trauma is the setup.
Yeah.
To transformation.
Is the setup for transformation. It's true, because it was so dark, so painful, so horrible that it invites you to wake up and say, I lost it all. This was the worst. I had that dark night of the soul. It can't get worse than this. What can I do with this? But this is the difference, because most people figure out how to survive it and stay there. No. When you've been dealt with whatever trauma you have, think about it. How many people do you know who maybe they were on death's door? They went down a health path. It was awful, but they figured out some way to heal, alternative therapies, whatever they did. They were so lit up by what they learned. They got certified in it, and that's what they're doing. Or someone, financial ruin, right? Lost it all. And then they figured out, when they had nothing to lose, and created that little business. And now they're doing the work they love. You see? So it's in our biggest crisis always reveals our greatest gift. And I just feel like it's everybody's obligation. If you learn something, how do you not share that? I mean, that's what we're here for.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. I mean, that's essentially why the main purpose of this podcast. Personally, I've gone through some major crap. Right? Let's just say that, right? But what they always say, when people hit rock bottom, if you really want it, it's there for you. You just have to go for it, right? Yeah, I had another thought that I wanted to ask you, but it's kind of slipped. It'll come back. So kind of bridging these two together, the trauma and trust, right? Learning to trust again, right? So how do you cross that bridge?
Yeah, and I'll give you another analogy. I look at trust like a brick wall. And the only way I know to build it is brick by brick by brick. Every opportunity someone has to show that they're trustworthy is like a brick in the wall. And it can take 10, 20, 30 years to build. And then that person all of a sudden demolishes the wall. Now you can look at the rubble of bricks and say, I don't have the least bit of interest watching that thing get rebuilt. But if you do, the person whose trust was shattered has to be willing to watch the brick wall get rebuilt. And the person who shattered the wall has to be a really good bricklayer. And the same way it went up the first time, brick by brick by brick. What happens though is we're always in such a rush because it feels so uncomfortable, so awkward. We're like, okay, forget it. I'll just trust again. And that's why I wrote Trust Again, because we can't bypass the first 3 stages, 3 levels of that to get to the 4th. And I'm happy to go through that too. I spell it out, Trust Again, but okay. Yeah. So when you've been betrayed, when trust is shattered, you don't just lose trust in the person who betrayed you. You don't trust yourself because you're like, I'm a bright person. How did I not see? How did I not know? And it causes us to question everything and everyone. So it has to be built from the ground up. So I'm talking the very foundation. So what you need to do is start as simple as something like, is the sun going to rise? I don't know. I don't believe in anything anymore. I don't know. So you check a couple of mornings, check. Oh, there it is. Right. And until you really firmly believe that, you just keep checking. And when you do, now that foundation is laid. From there, now you have something to stand on. The next thing is you have to learn to trust your gut again, your higher wisdom, wise inner guide, whatever you want to call it. And if someone or something gives you a sense that it's off, trust it. Our guts, I remember a mentor saying, our gut is like 10,000 times more perceptive than our mind. But what happens? We get a gut feeling and we override it with our mind. No, we have to learn to trust our gut again. What does truth and trust feel like for you? Feel that in your body. How does that feel? That's your guide of what trust feels like for you. How does a lack of trust feel in your body? Where do you feel it? That's your guide to know what it feels like. And we need to strengthen that. When you do, you'll feel a sense of safety and security building a little bit, right? When you feel that, now you have to learn to trust in yourself again, because that was shattered too. So the way to do that is you give yourself little tasks and then you do them. I'm going to drink that glass of water and then you do. I'm going to make that phone call and then you do. I will not call my ex and then you don't. Whatever it is, right? And you're showing yourself, I'm trustworthy. My word is law. I say something, I mean it. So now you can imagine the foundation is built, right? I trust my intuition. I trust my gut. I trust myself. And from that space, we can cautiously and carefully start trusting in others again.
Mm-hmm. It really just comes down to you, right?
That's
mean, it does. It does. Yeah, I love your architect sort of analogy, which is great. You just don't not rebuilding the same house, and because who wants to, like you're saying, who wants to live in the same mold, right? You got to recreate yourself. That's why reinventing yourself is so important, no matter whose life you're living. I remember what I was going to ask you, because which is the dark night of the soul. Mm-hmm. So I'm in the film business, and there's a term in around end of Act 2, early Act 3, where it's the dark night of the soul, right? Mm-hmm. And literally that's the transformation inciting incident where the main character has to go through all this crap in the beginning in order to come out a whole different person, right? I mean, this literally sounds like techniques in writing a script. Really, that's what it's about, right?
There's Joseph Campbell's hero's journey. That's 5 stages. It's a different heroine's journey. You're moving through the 5 stages, and as you do, it's the same experience, but you're not stopping until you're out there. You walk in with symptoms of post-betrayal syndrome, and you walk out post-betrayal, at that place of post-betrayal transformation, and you've moved through all of it. Yeah.
Right. Let's talk about the I'm actually really fascinated about the unshakable woman. Mm-hmm. I'm fascinated about that. Let's talk a little bit about that, because knowing what you've talked about of yourself, right? Mm-hmm. I'm only assuming that you're putting all this wisdom into this one book, right? So we sort of know why you wrote this book. How did you change as a person writing this book?
Yeah. Well, The Unshakable Woman was when I healed from being in the ICU for 11 days. It's a miracle I'm alive, and surviving death of a loved one. I wrote that at kind of, at the beginning, the early stages of my betrayal, but I referenced it, wasn't ready to share it just then. But it was really through those experiences that I realized we're so much stronger than we know, so much stronger than we think. So, that was the first experience with it. And then there's the Unshakable Woman, the workbook, which, is all the experiential activities. But trust again, that was, I have all of my whole stories in there. My study participant stories are in there. The 4-step trust rebuilding process, the 5 stages, all of that. And that was really that entire experience of what betrayal does, but the opportunity it gives us as well. I mean, I must have at least 250 studies cited in there, but listen, I wanted to make it reader friendly. so it
Right.
definitely is. It's not, there's a lot of data in there, but it's very user friendly. And I read the audiobook, which was fun too. But yeah, it's the beauty is we can heal from all of it. I'm living proof, and I'm not doing anything anybody else couldn't do. I just said, I'm just going to do something good with something bad. I think that's our obligation.
Yeah, you just said, let's go do it. That's for, I believe that, if you're going through something, the choice, when you're at that crossroads, you have two choices. You can continue going down the same road, or you can make that choice on whatever it is that you want to, change about your life, right? Because choice, that millisecond of making that choice will change your future, right?
Yeah, 100%. People think that change takes time. I disagree. I think seeing the results of change takes time, but change happens with a decision.
Yeah. Well, okay, here's a question for you. So change when itself, how does somebody get to that point of making that change immediately, and making that decision to go, okay, I'm going to do this when they're suffering so much?
Yeah, I've seen it in a few ways. I call it, and I reference this in The Unshakable Woman, the self-induced life crisis or the life crisis. The self-induced life crisis, that's the day. Everybody has the day you throw out the cookies, the day you join the gym, the day you make the doctor's appointment, pack your bags, throw out the cigarettes, have that difficult conversation that day. And everybody knows you're different. Don't mess with you. It's a very different experience, right? So it's the self-induced life crisis where we're bringing on the change, or it's the life crisis that forces it kind of on us for us.
Okay, so the self-induced, makes sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
The crisis-induced, let's say you're getting pushed into the corner with all these crises.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how do you have the courage and the energy and the confidence to battle that, to get out of that darkness?
Yeah, it is the hardest. It's the battle of your life. It's the battle of your life, and it will take you down. I mean, there were days I struggled just to get out of bed. I didn't know how I would survive it. But you just keep moving forward without knowing what's going to show up. Just there, I look at it like because we're so much stronger than we think, we're given these opportunities just to show us how amazing we really are. And we don't really know it unless we're challenged. Not to say, hey, bring it on. Who wants that? But when we're going through it, it's the perfect opportunity to see who we are and how we show up. And fortunately, I've been in enough of these situations already to see who I've become as a result. For me to write something like The Unshakable Woman, like I had been through, and it's for any woman, I mean, it's for any guy too, who really has been through these dark experiences, but push forward. Trust again. Writing that book, it's to show somebody, I get how painful it is. I get how this was the person, these were the people you put all your love, faith, and trust in. However, I also understand this is the biggest opportunity for you to create a version of yourself so healthy, healed, whole, strong, empowered. It's waiting. That version is waiting.
It is. Yeah, it is. Sometimes it's knocking at the door so loudly that you can't even hear it, whether you're numb through alcohol or drugs. It's knocking. It's constantly knocking, and it's that small little voice too. I want to kind of just skim through the numbing and avoiding part, right? We're talking about numbing ourselves, because when you're in the battlefield of darkness and betrayal, you're bound to be so tired and exhausted that you don't want to deal with reality or the world, right? And so you start numbing yourself and avoiding things and, getting distracted by social media, whatever it is to take you off the mind, right? So when you're in that place where it's induced by alcohol or drugs, right? That's a double whammy in a way. How would you communicate to that person? And how would you reach out to that person?
Yeah. You know what? And that's exactly what's going to keep you rooted right there in stage 3. I invite everybody to answer these 4 questions, because you'll see if you're doing this. Ready? Number 1, am I numbing and distracting? If so, how? Call yourself on it. Are you walk into the kitchen, you're not the least bit hungry, you start eating. You walk into a room, you put the TV on just to drown out the sound of your own thoughts. Call yourself on it. The second question, this is the hard one. What am I pretending not to see? Am I pretending not to see there's trouble in my relationship? Am I pretending not to see that health issue that needs my attention? Am I pretending not to see I hate my job? What am I pretending not to see? The third question, what's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years if I keep this going? Play it full out. Keep that drinking going 5 to 10 years and ignoring that relationship, that health issue, that job. What's life going to look like in 5 to 10 years? And the fourth question, what could life look like in 5 to 10 years if I change now? I'm not saying it's easy. Transformation begins when you tell yourself the truth.
That's beautiful. I love that. Transformations. Okay, cool. I love that. Debbie, if there was one piece of thought that you'd like to leave the listeners, what would that be?
Yeah. I would say, as it relates to betrayal, because I know how painful it is, if you have to say this 100 million times to yourself, it's worth it. Even though it happened to you, it's not about you. And you can heal from all of it. All of it. You've been through the worst already. You owe it to yourself to heal.
That's right. Awesome. Debbie, are there any social media links, any websites that you'd like to share so people can contact you?
Yeah, thank you. Take that quiz. You'll see what's stuck, in the wake of your betrayal. They could just find that at the PBT, as in post-betrayal transformation, thepbtinstitute.com/quiz. Beautiful.
Debbie, this has been a transformational dialogue. It really has. When I first contacted you about this, and I started reading through your stuff, and I thought, wow, this is really good stuff. So I'm very, very grateful that and appreciative that you came onto this show.
Thank you. It's people like you that give people like me an opportunity to share. So I'm grateful too. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, Debbie. Well, thank you again. And I will talk to you soon, and I'll keep you posted on everything. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. Peace out.